Today, a whirlwind of a worlds comes to its inevitable end as two surprise powerhouses meet here in Incheon for the World Championship Finals. You're getting some looks at the arena, the sights of all of South Korea, who's played host to this tournament for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's boiled down to these two teams here on this day, this evening. Hello, everyone. I'm James Dash Patterson, joined by Indiana Frosker in black, Jacob Yamato Cannon Mebdi, and Joshua Jat Leesman. The first time I came to Korea was 2014 Worlds. I was sitting in the stands as a fan to get to watch that World Championship. It is such an honor to be here this year and able to cast it. How are you guys feeling coming into this arena today?
I mean, frankly, Dash, I was right there with you. First time also seeing a World Final. I was in Korea, and now first World Final today.
Yeah, it's amazing because this Worlds has been historic. I know this is a Worlds that's going to be remembered for thousands of years, maybe not thousands, but
thousands of years.
Let's shoot for the moon, Yamato.
Yeah.
We're going for thousands.
And you said it's coming to its inevitable end. Like, does it have to? I want at least 5 games.
Please
Like,
give
at
me 5
least.
games, please. If this World Championship could continue onwards, I would love it because it's been exciting from start to where we are now. You can still throw your weight, though, into the World's prize pool by picking up Championship Kazakhs and his corresponding bundles so that you can remember this tournament for years to come, maybe thousands of years, and leave your mark on the 2018 World Championship. Now, the World's 2018 bracket was filled with legends who came up short and challengers who defied expectations. Strongest among them were EU's Fnatic, who made short work of EDG and Cloud9, opposite the LPL's Invictus Gaming, who struck down LCK champions KT Rolster and EU's G2 Esports. Those paths produced some record-breaking stats, like a faster overall average game time compared to 2017. The average game time being 32-17, 8% lower than 2017. More impressive than that, though, in my opinion, is the number of solo kills that have come through in this tournament. 189. That's more than double what we had just last year, and it's been done with more unique champion picks than ever seen in a World Championship before.
Yeah, there's just been so much cool stuff at this World Championship. People like seeing skill expression, individual outplays. They don't like super long, outdrawn, low-scoring games. So it's delivered from a gameplay perspective as well as from having surprising results.
I mean,
Double
you
the
were in
kills,
the
double the
thick of
fun.
it. You were in the thick of it, Yamato. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's all good.
But when it comes to the exploration of the unique champions and what could be playable, along or tied rather to this notion of solo kills and individual prowess being rewarded more than it ever has before, how did it feel to kind of experience and fumble your way through that?
Like, I've been playing this game for 8 years, but this year I felt like I was newly born, you know? It was crazy because the meta was broken in such a fashion. We had Heimerdinger as bot lane over in Europe, and it all of a sudden became this rock, paper, scissors kind of system where you had to think, oh, what can we pick? And we just looked at every single champion in the game, and that just created so many different scenarios, different kind of levels of matchups where we saw so many soul kills because of it, because these matchups are not mapped out completely.
And now you were looking for the right champion picks to get the wins. Frosk, we were doing our best to try and figure out why the picks were successful. Give me the analyst perspective of trying to figure out this Worlds from a meta perspective.
I mean, it's kind of just been about playing the early game. I think right now it's based all about the lanes, which means the matchups are so important. So it's going to be a skill check and what I like to call like a ready check on anything. Can you play these certain champions? If you don't feel confident in the Aatrox matchup, and I actually feel like Aatrox has been thrown to the wayside, or let's say the blind Victor, if you're not comfortable, then suddenly you're hamstrung in the ban. So we're going to see how deep the champion pools go, especially in those solo laners, because that can be the determining factor. Games can win or lose before 15 minutes.
Flexibility is wildly important in this World Championship. Now, those numbers backed up some moments that will forever be remembered in World's history, as pointed out by you in our World's favorite moments, not least of which was IG's insane base race versus KT Rolster.
This is going to be your game-ending push one way or the other. It's KT going for the base. It's going to be a base race. Nexus turret number 1, taking down to half HP. KT looking to end it right here, right now. Ning taken down to half. It's Shy versus Smeb at the base at the same time. Mono's going to be taken very low. Yukao barely going to be kept alive. Score taken down to one corner. Smeb's nearly going to be killed now as well. Def taken so low. The Flame Caller's not able to find him. Def goes in a killing spree. It's the Shy still in the base. It's KT looking to try to stand and fight if they can. The Shy has made his way onto the inhibitor turrets, onto the Nexus turrets. They're going to be taken down. KT still marching. It's a base race. The Shy's onto the blue Nexus. KT's onto the red. Who's going to win? The Shy will not. And KT takes it to game 4.
Holy crap! They won the top side 4v4 with Baron buff on. KT Rolster still are in Worlds!
And Holy crap, Invictus Gaming almost 3-0'd KT Rolster. Imagine that side of the bracket. It's 3-0 KT Rolster, 3-0 G2 Esports into the finals.
I have to catch my breath every time I watch that clip. I think my favorite moment is a small one where Kobe starts fanning himself with an invisible fan. It's only like 2 seconds long, but he goes for it. I'm like, yes, I feel you in that moment, Kobe. Percy Propa, though, had to give a shout out to Perks popping the hell off versus RNG. Let's take a look.
No flash, no flash, no flash, no flash.
No flash either. No flash either.
Nice,
good job. Nice.
Rise flash 2, rise flash 2. I'm stalling time.
Guys, we are getting top. If you, as long as you're down, we are fucking Guys, that bot lane could be on the right.
You're fine. We're smurfing. Push out on our base.
Okay, hey, LeBlanc, let's base and I'll go with you to top, okay? Oh, LeBlanc is going crazy, actually.
Holy shit.
Okay, well, LeBlanc really wants to actually go.
Oh my goodness, I just completely agree with Perks popping off there. It's unfortunate that Worlds only has one champion because that Game 5 performance by Perks, one of the best Game 5 performances I've ever seen.
Very much top tier. And what a way to enter a Game 5, right? That's when all the nerves are starting to hit you. But if I'm anyone other than Perks on that team and he starts racking up those kills, we just walk it in now. Just,
I think it's absolute crazy because on my end, I've been on that Game 5 behind the scenes. And when you know your players all of a sudden 3-0, 4-0, everyone can relax. Oh, he's doing the work. We can relax. Coaches can relax. Everything's cool. He's taking over. Perks definitely carried that game.
A sight to be seen. Yeah, very much smurfing. Twitter user I300 appreciates the little things at Worlds like Fnatic Flippos. Reactions.
These reactions are... He has so many of them, too.
Wait, the fun for me is the internal monologue, right?
Yeah, like, who can do the best whip?
Woohoo, baby! Oh, whoa! That's my jungler. Oh, okay, I see you, the shy. That's something like that, right? Yeah, he's like,
oh, that was deeper.
Oh, baby! There it is. That's the one misplay he's made all tournament. Okay. I love that face. Such an expressive face. I love players who get into it too, right? When you feel that emotion of it on the moment and you can really track the rise and fall of a team as those big team fights go in their favor and when a player feels like they're in control of the game.
Yeah, and how lucky Europe did to get Bwipo. He's got such a strong personality, but he's also backing it up with his in-game performance. You know, the fact that recently just started, now looking at his first Worlds final, I mean, this guy is just skyrocketing.
Oh, without a doubt. Finally, Kent Corrado points out one Vitality coach's speech with Shox as a turning point for the tournament's trajectory.
We brought our own flair, and G2, when they showed up in their style, they're winning. When Fnatic are doing their style, they're winning. Just stay true to yourselves. Do not try to chase anyone. Don't try to copy anyone. Just be confident. Don't limit yourselves either. Go into this tournament, play your next games, believing that you can fucking win everything. That is the mentality you need to have to conquer the best. Because anything is possible if you just believe and play with confidence and stay true to yourselves. So do that for me, Europe, please.
Well, I feel like I can win anything right now, but some say that Yamato Cannon, or would argue that Yamato is the MVP of this world so far. One victorious player, though, will join the likes of Ruler, Faker, and Mata as the World Championship Finals MVP, so I'm sorry, I'm going to have to take that. I'm going to take that trophy back from you later in the day. Yeah, you're ingrained in history forever. They'll remember that. Well, let's go over some of those World Finals MVP, because these are some marquee performances across the years.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's important to note that it's World's Finals MVP, not overall Worlds MVP, so it's how you perform on the day. And if we talk about front runners that I have that I think could get it, so much of the semifinals and knockout stage has been about the solo lanes. So the solo lanes for the winning team, whether that be Fnatic or IG, I think are the favorites.
Yeah, and for me, it's kind of this interesting idea that if it is Fnatic that take home the final, I think it's much more likely that a jungler or an ADC can pick it up. Broxah and Rekkles are just kind of waiting for that last pop-off performance, whereas if Invictus Gaming win, it feels like it is almost always going to be Rookie or the Shy.
Definitely, I have to echo that sentiment because Fnatic, I feel like they're so well-rounded in their approach. It feels like they have so many possibilities of playing different ways. And when you have this possibility of playing different ways, usually there's different people at
And it's more about how you decide to play on that day, right? Yep. They have every option available to them. Which path will they choose? After tweeting out your favorite moments of the Worlds, you sent the desk some questions, so we decided to grab some ahead of the World Championship match. First up, Timus asks, is this the best Worlds meta we've ever had?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Feels like an easy answer.
Of course, Vitality says that.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the solo kills we saw, which is double last Worlds, close to the lowest average game time, 9 unique champion picks. But the most impressive thing for me is how it doesn't feel like you can hide a player. In previous years, there'd be the wet noodle fight with Tank's top lane. Now, if you do that, it's a skill matchup against a Kleptomancy user who's going to try and snowball the game, or you have to shut him down. So there's skill checks absolutely everywhere, which leads to a very dynamic and exciting game.
You got to step up across the board. Next, Diego Garcia asked, who is the breakthrough player of the tournament and who is the most disappointing? Let's start with breakthrough.
For breakthrough, I'm actually going to say Bwipo. I feel like, again, no one outside of Europe really saw this guy coming. He's sitting behind Soaz. That is such a huge shadow and huge shoes to fill. And the fact that they've been able to balance both Soaz and Bwipo, not just over the course of their season, but the course of their tournament. He had to fill in big pressure situations, and he's got a big pressure situation again. So if he takes it home, again, this guy's just skyrocketing.
I think in terms of disappointing, I think the main expectation that people had was of Korea's performance. Everyone expected them to be the favorites.
Disappoint entire region.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
the whole region. I mean, let's be.
It's fair.
Yeah, it is fair.
I feel like Gen.G was the one that stood out the most to me because we, in preparation, we prepared so much harder and we expected so much more from them. And I felt like, you know, everyone expected more from them. The former world champions coming in the group, looking as a favorite next to RNG, and they just fell short.
Yeah, and I think it also depends on the lens with which you look at most surprising or most disappointing, because everyone who watched the LPL knew who the Shy was. But I did feel like it was a bit of a coming out party for him in the semifinals when people said, wow, that's the Shy.
Oh, he's really turned it on recently.
But from my perspective, it's Broxah, actually, because no one would have said Broxah would be the best jungler at Worlds, and he has been the best jungler at Worlds and could be a reason Fnatic wins if he performs today.
There it is. Finally, C9YDan tweeted, this Worlds holds plenty of surprises and upsets, but what out of all of the surprises stood out to you the most?
I think it's in the name, no? C9.
C9?
C9 going all the way to semis. You know, we had them in our group as well. They performed with their own style, with their own flair, and they took North America to new records. I think C9's route all the way to semis was very impressive.
Yeah, and specifically that day where C9 went 3-0, Vitality also went 2-1. You got to see the schedule where it's a bunch of RNG and Samsung, or rather Gen.G losses, and just Vitality and C9 winning the first 5 games of the day. It was insane.
I feel like it's the Vitality effect, if we're going to give it that name. You know, this idea that everyone's just going to throw some darts at the board, see what sticks, follow their style. And it felt like we finally did get very different iterations of like the late game team versus the early game team.
That day will go down in history in a sense. A group that felt predetermined, and then on the second day, second week, or second round robin of groups went completely out the window. Now the anthem of this year's Worlds kicked off an amazing tournament with a music video to match. So here's a look behind the scenes of the creation of Rise.
So Worlds is the top of the ladder. It's the peak of millions of hours that millions of players all over the world have put in, and our job is to give it a soundtrack. It started with kind of like last year, we had a rough instrumental, some kind of texture and stuff. I sent it to you.
We had a really great conversation about ideas, things we were talking about earlier, like climbing the mountain, a pump-up song. We wanted something that was like a fight song.
Welcome to the world, no heroes and villains. Welcome to
Glitch Mob has always been kind of this anthemic, hard-hitting electronic, but also it has its own style. And with this song, it just felt perfect.
The very first stuff you guys showed us was like some sketches of this character like climbing up this like rocky mountain. We're like, well, that's Glitch Mob in a nutshell.
We knew that coming in, our job was to take a different angle with the sounds that were there.
Right when the pickup vocal starts, what is going on under that? It's so cool.
Yeah, that's a Josh sound. Josh made that sound.
This thing?
Yeah.
What the hell?
Yeah.
Dude, I love that sound. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna run this a little more. Keep hollering out what you need. I can't sing that chorus, that rise, rise. I can't actually hit that. Telly was the only person that just smashed it acoustically, just exactly the way we needed it.
And when the giants call and ask you what you're worth, do you know it?
He's got this thing where it just like screams.
Prove yourself and rise, rise. Make them remember you.
To have like this level of collaboration that's, you know, between Justin, Alex, Seb, you guys, me, like there's just so many different perspectives. Every time someone listens to the song, they're gonna find something new that they didn't hear the last time.
When we have those conversations, all I'm doing is picturing Worlds. I got the chance to go to Beijing with these guys. I know what it looks like. I know what it feels like. That's the goal. Like, just aim straight for that. That reaction's undeniable.
And when the giants call and ask you what you're worth, do you know if we don't die?
Just under 45 minutes until we get to see that opening ceremony. But we've had a lane swap, and co-heads of esports at Riot Games, Will and Roselle and Jared Kennedy, have joined us. Gentlemen, congratulations. You made it to Worlds.
We did.
How does it feel?
Happy to be here.
Dream
on
come
the big
true.
stage. What has been your impression of this World so far? And you kind of just saw us all trying to make sense of it. But as fans of League of Legends and being able to watch the whole thing, what's your takeaway?
Goat Worlds.
It's been crazy.
Goat Worlds.
It's been crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, crazy meta, team fighting,
crazy
pocket
upsets,
picks, outplays, base races, upsets.
Favorites out. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome music video.
Right?
I mean, yeah, couldn't have asked more.
No Korea in the semis.
No Korea in the semis. That's nuts, too.
In Korea.
The end of an era. The beginning of a new one, perhaps.
It's been insane.
Now, an announcement just came out this week of the next 3 cities at the World, or next 3 countries, rather, that the World Championship will head to. I want to ask you guys why this decision was made or why this announcement was made now, the rationale behind, looking that far into the future.
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who haven't heard, right, we've announced the next 3 regions for the World Championships.
Europe, China, NA.
China, NA, and it's exciting and really proud of the team to finally be able to announce with this far ahead. I mean, it's indicative of our long-term investment, long-term commitment to making this a sport that lasts decades, and this enables partners to be able to invest and really go bigger on Worlds. It enables the cities that we're going to and the regions we're going to actually, make the event bigger and be better hosts, and exciting seeing all these international fans here. It enables fans to actually travel and book travel and make it out. So we're just very proud to just have those next 3 Worlds lined up, and hopefully they can deliver a fraction of what this Worlds has delivered this year.
And maybe even a defending champion next year.
Indeed,
Could
be defending at home.
That'd be spicy.
Yeah, and here's the thing, as you guys were just talking about all the outplays, the bloodiness of this. As we move closer to kind of global parity, the fact that Korea isn't in this Final Four, and so the West is rising up. What do you think that does to the health of like the global ecosystem for League of Legends and esports as we look forward?
Look, I think global parity is huge, and you're starting to see a lot of it. We're not completely there yet. I don't think Korea by any means is down and out. I think the East still has a large percentage of the top talent in the world, but League of Legends is a team sport, and the Western teams have really risen to the occasion in this tournament. It's been really exciting to see, and what's also really exciting is the young talent. So if you look at this final, we've got Caps coming out of Denmark, we've got Jackie Love out of China, and so it shows that talent can emerge from anywhere. And I think that type of global parity, the fact that talent's coming from all around the world, bodes really well for the future of the sport.
I think we'll see some Empire Strikes Back next year.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
But for now, let's just enjoy Whippo and his reactions and all that good stuff.
And how much do you think that long-term partnerships or franchising, both the LPL, the NALCS, and now even Europe looking next year for long-term partnerships has kind of impacted this global parity? Do you think there's a correlation there, or if this is going to be the model for future leagues as we move forward?
So whether or not it's the model for future leagues is to be determined, but franchising or long-term partnership is a means to an end. It basically creates a platform on which we can build for the long term. And if you look at China, if you look at North America, that's what we're seeing. I mean, the LPL continues to crush. Uzi just got a Nike endorsement deal. The LPL is doing home and away in North America. You saw teams investing more. Liquid finally broke through. They've got a beautiful facility paid for by Steve, which we think, who knows, maybe that helped them. And, we're on our way to seeing a lot of investment around the world. Each region will make their own decision, but we so far think that permanent partnership's been a great thing.
I mean, a lot of people point to the LCK, birthplace of esports in Korea, that investment in the ecosystem being one of the major factors for why they've been dominant across all esports in the world. Prediction time, guys. I've got analysts who have struggled week after week after week in this tournament to get any of them right, but I'm going to turn to you. Fnatic, IG, we're in a position we've never been in before. Europe versus China.
One right answer.
Yeah. Well, I saw your tweet. I understand where you're at. Look, we've done our homework. We watched the dive.
Okay.
Watch this or that.
He's not making eye contact with you.
Read the tea leaves. And so far, no one has any clue what's going to go on. So I'm going to go with my heart. I'm going to hope for 5 games. I want Fnatic to be defending their title next year, so 3-2 Fnatic. That's my prediction.
Do you align?
IG in 5, Fnatic strikes back in Europe.
Ooh, oh, that would be quite a story. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you guys once again for taking the time to join us here on the desk. Please go enjoy.
It's our pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much. Now, looking back at the championship matchup, Shox caught up with Youngbuck to gauge his confidence here in InShot.
Thank you very much, Dash. I'm here with Youngbuck head coach for Fnatic. Youngbuck, what a wonderful occasion. Now, you've gone through a lot with G2 and Fnatic both, and also in your player career. Could you first talk to me about what it's like to see this awesome venue and these two teams in the final?
It means so much to me. I've never seen a venue this big because we've never made it this far. I've never made it this far with any of my teams, even though we've been trying to represent the West for like 2 years with both G2 and now it's Fnatic, and MSI didn't go that well. And now we're here on the big stage, and we've already been talking as a team like there are so many players who have to miss out on this opportunity, but we are here, we made it, and we can be really proud of ourselves.
There are, of course, a lot of players from Europe that would wish they were in this position. What does it mean to the EU LCS and for Europe that Fnatic was able to make it this far?
I think it means a lot to Europe, but also to NA that we have been giving hope and that Cloud9 has been doing the same, because all these years it's always been about going to Worlds and Korea will win and China might be able to overthrow the Koreans. But now here we are as a Western team actually representing all of Europe in the finals, and I hope that it also inspires the other teams to let them know that you guys can also be here.
It is definitely a huge inspiration, but now let's get to the meat of it. You gave me a very interesting prediction when I asked you before your match versus C9. Versus IG is a different beast, though. They are such a phenomenal team. What are your predictions for today?
So I think we're going to win the first game, almost no matter what. But I think Red Side will be very difficult. And I think if we overcome the second game, even if we somehow drop the first game and come back in the second game, we'll take the series. If not, it might be a very tough series. But I will say 3-1.
I would say a bit less confident than before the semifinal.
Well, it's the finals and not the semifinal.
Clearly, that is true. Thank you very much, Youngbuck. The best of luck. Back over to you guys.
Thank you very much, Shox. Youngbuck calling the victory, but he says perhaps in a 3-1 fashion.
I hope he calls the victory.
Well, I would be, yes, I would be concerned
I'm not
if
sure.
he did it.
Mentality, Dash.
Nah, we'll give it to IG. Saying blue side, he thinks it's going to be very important for this team today.
And that's what everyone needs to be paying attention to. It's what are these teams going to determine what is the priority pick. We saw some blind LeBlanc going through. We know that both Rookie and Caps can pop off on this pick. But if the LeBlanc gets banned, like how far down the line do we go? Because that's your big thing with blue side is you have the ability to immediately grab a power pick.
I feel like usually in tournaments when the meta is established and more power picks are coming through, you understand which ones are the counter picks. Usually Red Side is beginning to gain more strength. I think IG with their championship pool here, I think they can create a lot of hassle there for Fnatic.
Yeah, willing to note the Fnatic won the coin toss. That's why they got selection in that first game. And every week at the tournament has actually kind of changed our perception of picks and power on blue side or red side, whether it's Victor or unknown Victor counter pick 3 that we might see today.
And we'll dive into the specifics of this matchup on the other side, but we're stepping away. But after the break, we look at the history of the finalists and break down the matchup taking place here in Moonhawk Stadium. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Worlds Countdown, where we're moving in towards the opening ceremony just before it kicks off. We looked at the fine print and the producer's dismay. Jat squeezed in a clause that if we ever went to Worlds in Incheon on a non-Olympic year, he'd get a Jat stat segment. I don't know how no one caught that, but I have to relinquish control over to him for one last time this season.
Specificity is key, Dash.
Yeah, well, I'm bringing my glasses next year, and I'm reading your contract.
So, hint, all this is related to the teams we're seeing playing today.
Okay.
We've had the World Championship so far, and we talked about the shorter average game time. But of the group stage teams, who has the lowest average game times? The two teams. Lowest and second lowest average game time.
From group stage?
From group stage onwards.
Oh,
of the teams
onwards. So they could still be teams that went to knockout stage.
And this is everyone Worlds, not just IG or Fnatic.
Yeah, it's all 16 teams from groups onwards.
Okay.
I would say either Invictus Gaming or Fengvu Buffalo. Or maybe even one of the LMS teams, because they got... I was
Crush.
I was going to look for Smash. I'm like, oh, too hard.
What are you thinking?
Like, our games were pretty quick.
They were.
They were.
But you had that one, like,
but you had one really long one.
You guys messed up all the averages.
47-minute long Cloud9 game for you guys.
I like the...
Don't remind me.
I like the Fengvu Buffalo call. I feel like a majority of their games were short.
All right, remember, it's related to these two teams.
Invictus Gaming? No, or 100 Thieves or G-Rex. Probably G-Rex.
So it could be teams that they beat as well.
So what are your top, what are your two lowest?
I'm going to go with Cloud9.
Okay.
And RNG. Oh, no, because they had the long game against you guys. So Cloud9 and
G-Rex
and IG.
Okay, Cloud and IG, G-Rex and IG.
Yeah.
And
I think both LMS teams excluding Flash Fools.
okay, you're close, but it's actually the 2 teams that Fnatic and IG beat up on.
100
G-Rex and 100 Thieves have the 2
G-Rex and
shortest
100 Thieves.
average game times.
2 teams in their group.
At the World Championship.
Oh,
IG
my
and Fnatic
goodness.
are right behind them. That was by far the fastest group. Okay.
Okay.
Next question. Of players in this game, so all 12 players across their world stats, who has the lowest gold at 10, XP at 10, and CS differential at 10?
The lowest?
Gold difference at 10, XP difference at 10, and worst CSD
So they're
difference.
not doing
This
well.
is the same player.
The Shy.
Okay.
Because I'm cheating off of a graphic that we use later in the broadcast.
Okay, sure.
But I remember his CSD and his gold differentials actually being pretty low. They're positive, but they're
Okay.
low.
All right, Frosk?
I would almost go Reckless. I feel like he picks up a lot of all of these in post-lane phase. Like, that's where he acquires a lot of his farm.
Yamato?
Can I pick supports?
You can pick anyone,
I'm picking Hylissang. He roams all the time. He's never in lane.
Yeah,
I
that's
think.
true. He just pieces out.
Yeah, he's never in lane.
I'm
Doesn't
going to
take CS
say
either.
caps off. It's caps.
What?
Worst
Really?
at 10 and a negative 7.5 CSD at 10. Even in the LeBlanc game against Jensen's Lysandra, he was down in CS in those games. He's had a rough go.
I was going to say, it does kind of align with the expectation versus reality storyline that's been tied to him at this
Really
World
crazy.
Championship.
All right, going to champion pool since we've done players. Who am I? I have the highest win rate.
Got it!
I have the highest win rate of champions with more than 2 games, so it's not Heimerdinger and it's not a one-trick. An
Okay.
overall record of 10-2, but an only 34% pick ban presence. And if
4-0
it's
record.
IG or Fnatic playing me, I have a 4-0 record overall.
Oh,
What
okay.
champion am I?
Braum.
I was going to say Braum, too.
Well,
Or
they
LeBlanc.
seem so wildly confident in that. I have to go with
4-0 record.
I'm going with them because they said Braum.
It's either the Braum or LeBlanc.
I fully trust my analyst, Jet.
Hylissang alone is 6-0 on Braum.
I will never trust
It's
you ever
Ornn.
again.
83% win rate.
Well, Braum counts.
I don't know if
He's
he's champion.
Braum does count him, to be true. It's close. But yeah, I don't even think we're going to see Ornn in this series just because of the
Probably
top
not.
players. But if you do, you know these teams have had a lot of success with it.
Well, there you have it. Today, though, we have the return of an LPL representative to the final after years of touting their strength as potentially the second best region in the world.
And it was the fact that it's Invictus Gaming. You know, when you have 2 titans that have dominated the LPL for so long, you've got RNG, you have Edward Gaming, and it's Invictus Gaming that not only pop out between those 2, but then are fed into a bracket stage with KT as well as RNG, and they managed to make the finals. And here's the thing, like, everyone's looking at the LCK, like this is going to be KT Rolster or maybe RNG. No one expected this dark horse. We knew that they were good, but we didn't know that they were going to be finals good.
Yeah, absolutely. They have performed so well. In the whole Vitality effect, we don't necessarily talk about the effect it might have on IG because they didn't play like RNG did, who were super bot focused, or like any of the LCK teams did. They also played their style.
Very much came in. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you just have to understand that Invictus Gaming aren't even the best team in the LPL, and they now have the opportunity to be the best team in the world. They've never won a domestic championship.
And they had to take down one of those Korean teams to get to this finals. Of course, instead of taking down Korea in Korea for the final, they're up against a region that's consistently in that conversation for number 2 in EU.
I think Europe, the first time I was at Worlds with Splice, I felt how hard we were getting underestimated. We faced RNG in our group stage. First game, they smashed us. I think we lost in like 20 minutes. The second game, all of a sudden my bot lane is solo killing Uzi and Mata because I felt like there was disrespect in the air. And I think this is a sentiment that has been around the entire time.
I mean, we have a perfect example of the LPL looking past Europe. It was RNG versus G2, and G2 just comes over and basically kneecaps them, takes them down. You could see the shock on Uzi's face. And it's always, as an LPL representative, it's always Europe that gets you. You know, you think about G2 versus WE, you think about EDG versus Fnatic in the quarterfinals, twice that they've done it. And so far, if the LPL is always like, nah, it's just about us and the LCK, Europe just comes up and sucker punches them every single time, says, no, you must respect us.
Exactly, and if they're not careful, then Europe's going to absolutely overtake them. The game score is still in the LPL's favor at international events, 39-24, but including this Worlds, the best of 5 record, it's tied.
Tied up.
4-4. You might call this final the tiebreaker.
Oh no, don't say no.
Oh, you might. You might
may.
call it
You
that,
could.
Jet. And
If you
I
wanted
love
to.
to
You
call
always
it
wins
that.
those.
That's true.
I know.
Now, more often than not, though, it is actually Fnatic as the European representative up against an LPL squad.
Absolutely. They've been around for so long. I mean, I think back to the 2000 World Championship where Reckless wasn't even old enough to be on Fnatic. That's the first time Fnatic had played Uzi. That was the semifinal against Starhorn Royal Club, and it keeps happening again and again. Since then, Fnatic has played EDG in the quarterfinals twice.
And that's the thing. If you're going to throw your faith behind, you know, a Western or a European squad, it's always going to be Fnatic. They're the kings of Europe, and they're now kind of taking the rightful place. Season 1 champions, now looking at season or possible Season 8 champions. And again, IG haven't even won their domestic region. Fnatic are like, no problem. Check out our trophy case.
Yeah, usually the last one standing, hoping to be the absolute last one standing tonight. Now, in the journey to the finals, Fnatic booked their trip to Incheon after a dominating semifinal win, captured on this week's Mic Check.
We're not only playing against C9, we're also playing against IG already. Mental. True. Rio.
I agree.
It's the new pictures. There's bearded Reckless on the screen. Oh, yeah. But I think they win the beard war.
All right, guys, make sure have a high energy. Kill them all, okay?
Yeah, man.
All right, kill them all. Let's win today.
Yep. I get 61 creep. Okay.
Yeah. Obviously.
I'm going.
Okay. I'm gonna.
LeBlanc's moving with him.
Right, they're coming.
You guys have short window, okay? I'm ulting for HP. You guys need to get out.
I can't get out.
You guys
get out of chem. Get out of chem.
Okay, I should be fine. Go, April, go, April. April flash, yes, no?
Yes, has flash. No.
He's down. Nice. Let's fucking go, guys. Nice.
Okay, we can go. We see Echo. Back up, Echo.
No, it's good. We can win this.
He flashed on me.
He's dead.
I'm coming. We can do Nash, no? We can do Nash. Nash is free. Yes, we have Mount. I have a full item complete. I mean, I'm Monster Vicar, by the way. Unkillable in all situations of the game.
I have nothing to help.
Don't let him kill me!
Oh, I'm dead.
No, Sneaky's dead too.
We're fine.
No.
Oh,
We've done this before.
Oh, that's
what? You didn't say the claw?
That's a no claw player.
I'm playing for KDA over here.
Oh, that's not KDA.
That's a beautiful KDA right there.
Yeah, almost. Okay, nice try.
Nice, that's
nice, guys. That's a good shot.
Really baited me.
Why did he bait you?
Understand.
Oh yeah.
Is that another free kill?
I told you he had flash.
Yeah, and Hilly was like another free kill, so I had to go for it. But I was thinking first like, well, he's just gonna flash and kill me. But then Hilly was like, another free kill, so I was like, then I felt pressured.
Okay. Chunk him.
We're gonna blow him, yeah. Just one shot. Yeah.
Nice. Good shot.
Yeah. 3K. I can't get bid anymore. Now
3K. Going in. Can we finish?
Yeah. Nice one.
He flashed in.
Let's fucking go, guys.
Nice.
Look. I've out them. I'm out in. Big stop. Watch his ear. He can still kill us all. He's in smoke. Look here. Zit. Azir.
I can eat on him, maybe.
I'm dead. He's gonna kill us all.
Win. He killed everyone. Holy shit, Cap. Is that a penta?
Oh my
Did you penta kill? Oh my Cap!
Don't show that you're like overly excited to be in the finals. Show that.
I think this is where I cut in and say that let's win first.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Don't worry, we're gonna win, Broxah. Don't worry. Don't be like overly excited or anything. Show IG that you're ready to play a finals, and you're not here for fun.
Yes, I agree.
It's mental game already.
I'm here for fun.
I'm here for fun.
I'm having fun.
No fun allowed.
But win first, Broxah.
Oh yeah, right.
Win
That
first.
was actually my rule.
No fun allowed.
That's my rule.
Be the Falco.
No mana pro.
I don't have mana for all. It's gonna be awkward.
I think you're trouble.
Yes, flash.
Yes, I'm dead.
Nice.
That's one. They can't get out, by the way. They have to walk through us.
I got Ulam. I can go soon.
Can we go? I'm going Echo. We're peeling Lissandra. Lissandra's dead. Lissandra's
Win. And mid almost.
Oh! Just run. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, he's
Just go mid.
Go mid. I think we're gonna...
I will have him in big
Gets hurt.
Yeah, that rooted the stun as well. Nice. We're going to finals.
Hey, do you know what we do now? I think we won.
Confident. We're gonna win Worlds.
A look back on the semifinal victory that brings Fnatic to this best of 5 tonight. Words of wisdom from Broxah. Win first.
Yes, please.
Please win first. But I have a question for you guys. Is this Fnatic team, this version of Fnatic, the best Western team we have ever seen?
I think first, what comes to mind is Moscow 5, previous alterations of Fnatic. I think Fnatic has been very lucky in their group draw and their bracket draw as well. And I feel like if they beat IG today, it will cement them as the best Western team of all time.
Yeah, because I think the context is so important. The last time you really thought a European team was the best in the world was in 2012 with Moscow 5. And to then have 5 years of Korean dominance and so much maturation of the sport. Yes, I think if Fnatic loses, there will be people that look back and say, they never played a Korean team and look who they played in the semifinals. But if they win, I think there would be no doubt that this would be the best Western team of all time.
Yeah, and I think it's, again, if we talk about like context, you know, I don't want to compare this Fnatic versus other like European or Western team superstars, because for me it's just like, this is the best chance that I think a Western team is ever going to get at lifting the trophy.
It's hard to argue with a world title if they are to secure. What about on the side of IG? If they win, are they the best LPL team that we've ever seen?
I like this question.
This is
a
so
tough
hard.
one.
So you have to understand, if you don't watch the LPL, Edward Gaming and RNG have won everything. And then there's maybe like a WE championship in there, an OMG early one. The first time that Invictus Gaming even went to the finals, it was in 2013 spring and 2018 summer. Now they've been to the playoffs like 10 times, but they just have never lifted the trophy. At that big final last hurdle, they haven't got it. So can you be the best LPL team just because you lift the Summoners Cup?
That's how important Worlds can be, though.
It's
right?
the only
like,
one that matters.
The LPL hasn't won a World Championship, and if you looked at their year in totality, 2 17-1 regular seasons and a World Championship, I feel like it will be hard for a single LPL year to top that. So it's crazy to think without ever winning an LPL title. I think the answer is yes if they were to dominate.
This is like when you go to university and the professor's like, by the way, the final test, that's worth 90% of your grade.
Exactly.
This is bringing back some nightmares for me. Thank you very much for that. It's tough, right? You've got a team in RNG that's won everything but a world title, and then you have IG who's poised to do what RNG has not. One of Fnatic's most veteran players, though, Rekkles, feels that for this team to reach its peak, it had to trudge through some serious valleys.
So the first moment I thought we could do really well at Worlds was in Spring Split, when I was having probably the split of my life, and we were winning the split once again after not having the trophy for about 2.5 years. But then MSI came around and I realized we have way too many flaws. We only knew really how to play around me, and the AD carries at MSI were in match were the ones that mattered. So I felt like MSI was kind of a wake-up call for me to give my teammates more trust so that we can have more styles of play when it really comes down to it and when we're in these big moments at Worlds. Which is why I think it didn't necessarily feel like it was my show anymore. It was our show instead. And I think that is why we are so successful this Worlds as well, because we have a different guy every game stepping up and carrying the weight. And I think that is much more valuable than me doing it game by game.
I mean, Rekkles there accrediting, you know, him stepping away from the team as being a big boon to their development and what has made them successful here at the World Championship.
Yeah, and this guy's matured so much. I remember his first major international event when he was 16 years old. It was IPL 5, and that tournament had the defending world champions in TPA. It also had one of the best Korean teams at the time in Azubu Blaze. And Fnatic, with the 16-year-old Rekkles, made it all the way to the finals where they played against Team WE, and then they fell short. And he's been grinding really ever since that to try and prove that he can win a best in the world title, and now he has that chance, which is incredible.
You know, speaking of grind, like I played with him in a team. When he was 14, I was 16. It was back in Season 1, even pre-Season 1. And already then, he was working hard. He wanted to play every tournament, wanted to play solo queue all the time. And this drive, 8 years, and it has never been lost.
One of the many veterans on the stage searching for that title. 18 minutes ahead of game time, or opening ceremony rather. Fans are streaming in. The stadium's beginning to fill up. I want to talk about another one of the guys, the veterans on the side of IG, who's looking to hoist that Summoners Cup.
And really, it's going to be about Rookie. Anyone who's watching Invictus Gaming knows that this is the guy to focus on, and it's the road home for Rookie. You have to understand, he won LCK in 2014. At the height of his career, leaves for the LPL with the Great Korean Migration, and we call him a career Korean. He's really left his fingerprint on one of the most after never being in a final. To lift that trophy in front of a Korean crowd, it just justifies everything. It's hashtag worth for Rookie. I made the right call.
All right, well, for more on that matchup, let's gather some thoughts from Captain Flowers, Papa Smithy, and Kobe, who will be bringing you Game 1 after the opening ceremony.
Thank you very much, Dash, and I cannot tell you how excited we are to be here for the World Finals, especially a Finals with so many explosive players on the Rift. As we heard from Rekkles, Fnatic has been carrying from all over the place. We've been seeing carry performances across the board from IG as well, and I know, Papa Smithy, you were specifically excited about the top lane.
Yeah, I'm just waiting and counting down for the champion set. The opening ceremony is going to be great, but I'm just excited about the opening bands and how the top lane really pans out, because we have to remember, we've come a long way. We saw Aatrox versus Urgot dominate the conversation in the lead up to this tournament, at the start of this tournament, and then the evolutions from there. We're in a grand final where Jace and Victor Top are the most contested top laners in many ways. It's actually affected the starting lineups because Soaz was starting, Duke was starting for these teams earlier in the year when it was more of that bot lane focused meta. The MSI meta feels like a long time away, and now we have the Shy and of course Whippo on the other side, or those dominant forces, and what they get their hands on and whether there's something new, because you check those solo queue accounts, there's some spicy stuff in there, Kobe.
There definitely is, and with the increased importance that we've seen with these all-star solo laners, I want to turn the lens as well towards the junglers and the supports, the roles that are setting those guys up, because it has been so much about the movement for both of these two teams. In the game number 1 where IG beat Fnatic in group stages, Ning had very successful early ganks bottom lane to set them up. Meanwhile, when Fnatic got their victories, it was Broxah and it was Hylissang making so many movements, especially up towards the mid lane.
And with the amount of crazy plays that we've seen so far at this tournament, it's going to come down to who wants it more, who really is the better team that can show up and do what, honestly, we've seen both of these teams do so many times now already. But that's what we're looking out for ahead of the championship match. Until then, back to you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Can't wait to see you guys in that cast. But Fnatic versus IG, both in Group D. First time we've ever had two teams from the same group run the knockout stage and meet each other in the finals. What a treat.
They demolished that group.
Absolutely.
Like, it really just felt like an appetizer for them to play against each other, and then Fnatic winning 2 games in a row on that final day to get what ended up being a very important first seed.
I feel like it's so hard to take anything away from these games because the meta has evolved so much. In these games, we had a lot of dice bottom, and right now, you know, we see the Ornn on the
There's the Ornn, yeah.
There's the Ornn. The meta's completely shifted. The only thing we can take away is the stylistic differences. We have a team that is heavily focused on the team play and one that is focused on the individual play.
Yeah, and it's now kind of a question of what's the next evolution? Have we seen all that this world has to offer? Because it feels like every single stage along the way, we get like a brand new pick or something surprising that comes out, even Victor being moved down into the bottom lane. So what's the cherry on top here? Is it simply a Western team or an LPL bringing home the first championship? Or are we going to see it like another trump card get laid down?
I mean, we just heard from the casters that they're kind of looking at jungle support, the more supportive roles behind some of those solo laners. But that's what I want to talk about. Top lane, mid lane, we've got some big names as well as some big expectations for how they'll play out.
And the solo lanes are absolutely crucial. We see this tilting so many different matchups. We're going to start in the top lane with Whippo versus the Shy, the 2 designated starters for these teams because they both brought top lane subs. But the Shy really invalidated the Aatrox pick in this series against G2, unless he was playing it, in which case he was 4v1. 1v4, the other way around.
There you go.
And then you look at Whippo, who actually has better numbers than the Shy across the entire tournament, much because of his domination of Licorice in their semifinal.
And the thing is if you take a peek at their solo queue, they've got a few extra champions still kind of hanging around there, and we'll see if they pop out during the
you want to say
series.
Ribbon?
I want to say Ribbon. And it should be noted, if you
Ribbon.
don't know anything about the Shy, he was originally a streamer before he went pro, and he was a Riven one trick. So if you're looking at one of the best Riven players in the world, he's played it a couple times in the LPL, it's sick.
He wants to play it so he can get that skin
Wants the
if he wins.
championship skin.
Exactly.
Yeah. And listen, based on performance, I do feel like the Shy has been the best top laner in the world at this World Championship. Is his individual mechanics, how quickly he cancels auto attacks, how much he wins these matchups by, has been so incredibly impressive. I think if we get peak the Shy, I think IG wins the series, but he's got to show up.
He's definitely a top performer, but he is up against Whippo. Kind of a surprise player here in 2018. He's maybe now a household name through the 2018 World Championship, but before this, you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody who knows who that guy is.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, Whippo, I barely know him. Like, he just appeared out of nowhere, you know, and he has this personality about him, you know. Whenever he's getting interviewed, he has this energy about him, and I think it's been, you know, the journey of Whippo is just incredible. Like the fact that he has this name even makes it ridiculous. You know, it makes sense for him to take it home. You know, the story of Whippo is one for the enemies, you know?
And what I think is so impressive about Whippo is just not his mechanical 1v1 ability and his champion depth, but the decision-making that he does. You know, for a player that is so new to the competitive scene and such a bright spotlight, he hasn't been blinded by that glare. He keeps a cool head, he's hitting his proper teleport timings, and again, then you have the reassurance of Soaz, like the oldest player, or in terms of like championships that he's attended, just sitting right behind him. It's like, he's got nothing to worry about.
Right, that's just the top lane. Let's stroll on down to the mid lane where we find Caps versus Rookie.
Yeah, and this is another matchup of Titans, but when they did play in the group stage, it was Rookie getting the better of Caps, and then the team that's linked to Caps kind of helping him through that so he could play in team fights. You look at Rookie in this tournament, and he has been unmatched in the mid lane, specifically in the laning phase. And then it is all about being able to transition that to the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's about that dominant lane phase, the fact that he never misses any CS, that he's always perfect on the roam. To be fair to Caps, Rookie did get the counter pick several times. I don't expect this to be the same matchup.
Plus 20?
It's ridiculous.
On average.
And I almost feel like
Worlds.
it's going to be a gauntlet toss of who's going to get LeBlanc. Are they going to ban it? Because if you give it to either of these guys, they'll pop off and control the game.
I think it's something that is very important to highlight as well. I feel like the Hylissang interaction and Broxah interaction is much heavier for Caps. And Caps as a player likes to play, if he has an advantage, he likes to just continue snowballing mid lane. Rookie, when he gets advantages, snowballs the rest of the map. So it's a very interesting kind of dynamic with these differences of styles.
Yeah, and look at how many different champions are on these pools. We saw something similar for top lane. You only get 3 bans at the start on each side. There is so many mind games and skill matches and skill checks that are going to happen between the Jace and Lissandra, or if you can push Caps down to the Azir. It is so much about how these guys perform. All 4 of these guys you just mentioned are spectacular players, capable of beating their opponents, even if I think IG has a slight edge going into it.
11 champions between them. You only have a maximum of 5 games. So again, this boils down to those priorities. What do you as a team and as a player value specifically in that 1v1 matchup across from, say, Rookie, the best performing player at the tournament?
And it's also kind of like what confidence you have to break that. You know, we'll see so many people, what if they decide to leave the LeBlanc open, it gets the priority pick, and they feel comfortable taking the Lissandra matchup into it.
Well, when it comes to Reckless's dream of raising that trophy, IG mid laner Rookie has no qualms with crushing the Fnatic ADC.
일단 뭐 레클레이스 선수 하면은 생각나는 게 잘생겼다 밖에 없어서 저는 뭐 레클레이스가 실력도 출중하지만 또 외모가 뛰어나시니까 저희가 이제 비교적 외모가 좀 딸리거든요. 그래서 저희한테 우승컵 드리는 것도 좀 나쁘지 않을까 생각해요. 레클레이스 그냥 뭐 영화배우 하셔 돈 벌어서 될 것 같은데 장난이고 뭐 레클레이스 되게 오래 하셨으니까 그렇기 때문에 이 롤드컵 우승이라는 타이틀이 되게 목숨도 걸고 되게 갈망하실 텐데 뭐 저희도 똑같거든요. 저도 뭐 레클레이스보단 안 했지만 그래도 오래 했던 베테랑 선수라서 그냥 서로의 약간 누가 더 갈망하냐 이 차이일 것 같아요.
A little bit of fun in the interview before the matchup. I wonder if he's still feeling that lighthearted and giddy stepping on stage with all the pressure that's mounting. But something that we do in particular when series feel close is we take a look at the teams lane by lane by lane in comparison to see where we might give the edge to either squad. So we've done the same. Let's pull up the scorecard and see who indexes where.
Yeah, I think we have painted Invictus Gaming as this mechanically lane-focused team, and what Mike decided is how well they can transition team play, whereas Fnatic, how well can they do in lane so that their team play can take over? I think you see that with the jungle, the bot, and support, which have actually been more supportive to the solo lanes in the last few weeks of the World Championship.
Something I want to highlight, though, I feel like Reckless is someone that plays very, very few amount of champions. He has kind of set this meta for him. Very good at Zyra Khan. Like it a lot when Hylissang is playing Braum as well. I'm curious to see what happens when bot lane bans start to happen, because IG can play the Draven. They can play these majestic champions that can dominate the lane phase, and I think that might kind of change the matchup a bit.
Yeah, this is what I expected. Kind of this next evolution, or the cherry on top, is JackeyLove to go to one of his signature picks in the Draven and actually try to play towards lane phase, because I think that's kind of like the one wrench that you can throw into this matchup. Everyone knows the solo laners are going to go back and forth, who's going to get the matchup, who's going to determine the draft phase, but IG could just decide to wipe the board clean, throw it down, Draven Thresh.
I think another important note when looking at that graphic, while there are 3 check marks on the side of Fnatic, doesn't necessarily mean that Fnatic is by any means a favorite. We've looked at this tournament as very much a solo lane dominated tournament, especially when we've come to the knockout stages.
Exactly. It's more important to win the mid and top lane, but also other lanes can contribute to the mid or top lane victory, right? Like, it's a 1v1 CS matchup, but a team can win mid lane, as we actually saw even in the tiebreakers between Fnatic and IG. Rookie won the CS war, but then Hilly was coming mid and Broxah was coming from the other side, and Rookie completely lost his lead, and then Caps took over in team fights. So it's just very close and very exciting.
This place is filling up with only 7 minutes to go before the opening ceremony, and now comes my favorite time of the countdown, when I get to talk to you guys about your favorite moments or most interesting moments from Worlds so far. And this has been one filled with twists, turns, topsy-turvy, upsets, as we heard Waylon and Jared saying so long ago. But let's start with it. Yamato, what for you has been the most interesting thing about Worlds 2018?
I love the meta. I love the meta game. I think it's, it's been summarized that, wards are gone. That's why it's so crazy. But I think it's way more than that. I feel like when you strive for perfection, you try to push your limits and you play on the edge. That's why there's so many crazy mistakes happening sometimes, dives going wrong, because these teams that want to win are playing on the edge. And when you do, you strive for perfection, you want to get there, and that's why the game looks so different. And Korea has always been playing safe and punishing these other teams that played safe and made mistakes while doing it. But as we proceed, go further and further, I think it's going to be just crazier and crazier.
And that's what I think is really interesting, is a lot of people will see just like these 24, 27-minute victories and think, you know, that team smashed them. But I feel like the meta is so volatile right now that it comes down to these very tiny micro decisions, you know, a level 2 gank that goes sideways because of the snowball factor. You have champions like Aatrox, like LeBlanc. If you get 1, 2 kills onto these champions, the game is pretty much over. So I feel like even if it's a smash one way or the other, it's still a very close series, and it's right in those micro moments of who's going to make the big outplay.
Yeah, because I got to say, going into 20 minutes, even if you're 3,000 gold ahead, yes, we've seen some games run away. We've seen a lot of 3,000 to 4,000 gold comebacks at 20 minutes as well, because if you out-execute in a 4v4 or you get 4 people to the place in the right time, you'll win the fight. And I love what you talk about of playing close to the edge, because I feel like so many Korean teams have been coached for so many years to make the reliable play. Only take 90-10s.
Yeah.
But if the other teams get good enough at the 60-40 and the 50-50, they're going to take so many more shots than you on the edge. And the Korean teams are so far away from the edge, they're not even trying, it almost felt like at some moments. So I think some of the changes that were made to the game rewarded that. I don't think it was because of wards, as Yamato said. Ward numbers are actually very close to last year. Even though the map is a little bit darker, there's larger things of play as far as how much risk teams are able to take successfully.
Frostgren, what about for you? What's your big takeaway?
For me, it's looking a lot at the champions. You know, I've just loved, I used to be a draft macro coach, and so looking at the drafting, I just think it's ingenious, some of the things that these teams are doing. And so again, it's who is going to be able to play the deepest champion pool? Are we going to see any of these really interesting picks where maybe champions are getting flexed in strange positions to try to catch someone off guard? Because right now it feels like blue side is the side that most teams are opting in for. But if someone can break red side, make that really work for them, either get bonus power picks so they feel confident enough that they can flex them around, or they just can stack their laners like Invictus Gaming, suddenly this series is very, very different. It's not just about who gets blue side most.
Go ahead.
I think also speaking to the point of champions and the impact of it, I felt like during this season we had this huge meta break where everyone just became open-minded about what they could play in different lanes. We had the Heimerdinger bottom and a bunch of other things. And I think that kind of opened everyone's mind. All of a sudden we have players that have 15 champions in the champion pool, 20 champions in the champion pool. And when you get to that point, you don't get to have these matchups that everyone has played out. For example, Azir versus Lulu every single game over and over. Right now we see different things all in every single game pretty much.
Yeah, and it's partly to do with teams playing their style. I also think that I've loved watching how much player skill matters in draft phase, because I just think back to the semifinal between Cloud9 and Fnatic, where it almost felt like Cloud9 was fearful. They banned Akali, Aurelia, and LeBlanc every single game. That's not going to happen in this series because their mid laners feel confident in both sides of the matchups. But if you don't, you're in a spot where you need to be good at all those things to survive. And I think that's been more true than in any previous meta, where there's nowhere to hide in draft plays. Yep. All your players have to be able to play almost all the matchups in order to succeed.
Every best of 5 has had its own identity. This one will be no different than the others in that sense. Jat, what about for you? 2018 Worlds, how's it been?
Yeah, so we've talked a lot about history at the World Championship so far. And I remember casting some of the early World Championships, 2012, when the LCS started in 2013. And I was always thinking, like, how long could an esports career really be? Because there were a lot of people at the time that thought you would burn out in 2 years, or you cap out at 22 and then your mechanics die.
Right, and Mr. 17-year-old comes in and takes your spot.
Exactly, and that's not true. We've seen a great maturation of the sport, and I love looking at the two teams that are on stage today. We have Rekkles, who Yamato mentioned has been playing League for his entire adult life, since he was 14. Rookie had almost all of the veterans on these teams have been playing forever. And then you also have the rookies. You have JackeyLove, who's still 17. You have Bwipo, who won Outstanding Rookie for the EULCS this year. You have this mix of young and old players, and I just think that's cool.
Which just brings us back to the idea that this is such a refreshing finals. Not only do we have two regions who haven't been here, right, in quite some time, Europe, obviously season 1, but haven't been here in quite some time to be able to step onto the stage and have that opportunity for their regions, but both veterans and young players alike trying to do it together.
Yeah, and it's amazing to then revisit Korea, you know, from 2014 to 2018, and the fact that it is kind of turning the next page in League of Legends, this new era of it, the fact that it's not double LCK, that we could have have a different champion
Yeah.
here or recrowning a Season 1 champion. And then you do have that great mixture of the veteran talent as well as the rookies.
And while we don't have a Korean team in the final, what better a place to return to, right? Kind of the birthplace of esports, being in Korea. You know, again, as I said, my first world championship, or first time to Korea was watching the World Championship, and I'm glad to be back.
And I got to say, Europe watched a Korea final in Europe. China watched a Korea final in China. Guess what Korea gets to watch? Europe versus China.
Yes, sweet, sweet revenge almost. But as you can see behind us, there is not an empty seat as the fans pour in anticipation of that opening ceremony just under a minute away. So with that, we are going to head inside the stadium to take a look at the sights and sounds and that countdown clock ahead of our opening ceremony presented by MasterCard.